I can tell you that when I didn't know how I wanted to be in my relationships or why I wanted to be that way, it was like I was at the mercy of the relationships, or that relationships, like I said, they just happened. Things occurred and I didn't know why or how. So, for example, my romantic relationships ended unexpectedly. Many of my friendships were not strong enough. So, even when minor conflicts appeared, the friendship fell apart.
I don't like to argue, so I say nothing and fume for days.
How do I set boundaries without sounding like a jerk?
I hate the idea that I might accidentally offend somebody, so sometimes I'd just rather say nothing at all.
Welcome to the Language Alchemy Podcast, and thank you for joining me today. This is your host, Alejandra, a transformative communication teacher and coach devoted to helping you increase your awareness of how you use language to communicate so that you can have more peace, more harmony, and all you desire in your life and relationships. And Happy New Year! I'm delighted to start the year with you. Whether you've been listening to the Language Alchemy podcast since its beginning in 2021, or whether this is your first time, I am honored you're here. I'm sincerely grateful that you are interested in having a healthy, mature, and conscious relationship with yourself, with important people in your life, and with the rest of our beautiful and diverse human family. Life is a series of cycles and seasons. Some of them depend on where we are. For example, I live in Northern California in the Northern Hemisphere, and right now we are in winter. But I was born and raised in Argentina in the Southern Hemisphere, where at this time of year, my family is going through summer. And I just came back from a spectacular trip to Fiji, which is closer to the equator. And even though it's in the Southern Hemisphere, their seasons are marked by rain or dryness. Our seasons are also determined by our cultures, religions, and the kinds of calendar we follow. Some of us just celebrated Hanukkah. Others celebrated Christmas. Some of us celebrated Kwanzaa. Some of us celebrated the solstice, depending on what traditions we adhere to. But the New Year is a cycle that renews for the whole world. For all of us, regardless of the weather, the location, religion, culture, or tradition. And for that reason, the New Year is a very special event. For me personally, it's my favorite event of the year because billions of people are celebrating everywhere in the world. And when billions of us celebrate, there's great energetic momentum. Right now, billions of members of our beautiful human family are celebrating renewal, newness, beginnings. Yes, billions of us are engaged with the energy of hope, of creation, of moving forward. So in this first episode of the new year, I want to encourage you to join in this potent energy and celebrate the newness of this beginning with consciousness and awareness. And because what I teach is to have healthy, mature, and fulfilling relationships, my intention is that this episode helps you increase your awareness about the newness you want to bring to the relationships in your life. But first, let me tell you a personal story. A couple of decades ago, I read somewhere that if you wanted to have a good, lasting romantic relationship, it was useful to write a list of what you wanted to have in this type of relationship. At the time, I was single, and I had already had romantic relationships. Some were short, some were long. But when I had these relationships, I thought they kind of just happened. I went to a party, to an event, to a show, and I met someone. And then that someone asked me for my phone number. Then we went on a date, then another date. You know the story. But before that, I had not considered consciously what I wanted in a relationship. And of course, I didn't have a list written about it. So I thought, okay, why not do this? Half an hour later, I had a 2-page list. I was so excited with my list that when a friend called me on the phone, I told her about it. Yes, this was back in the day before text messaging, when people called each other and we would talk for hours. Anyway, I was thrilled to have this list that I didn't have before, and I was very curious about whether this list would help me manifest the kind of romantic relationship I wanted. So while I was on the phone with my friend, she asked me if I was willing to read this list out loud and share it with her, which of course I did. When I was done, I asked her, "Pretty good list, right?" And then I heard a few seconds of silence. "Well," she said, "yes, you want wonderful things in your relationship, but all the things you wrote you want are about how you want your future romantic partner to be." Then, she added, "there's nothing on your list about how you want to be as a partner." That was completely true. Before that list, I had not given conscious thought to what I wanted in a romantic relationship other than, I wanted someone who loved me, who respected me. But what my good friend's question helped me realize was that I wasn't even remotely aware of how I wanted to be in a relationship. So after I hung up the phone, I started writing this list. And within a year or two, all my relationships changed. I started to experience the kinds of relationships that were not just pleasant or nice, but that were also nourishing, fulfilling. And when I say relationships here, I'm not just talking about romantic relationships, although I will share with you that having this awareness prepared me for the sacred relationship I have with Matthew. But all my relationships started to change, starting with the relationship with myself. I can tell you that when I didn't know how I wanted to be in my relationships or why I wanted to be that way, it was like I was at the mercy of the relationships, or that relationships, like I said, they just happened. Things occurred and I didn't know why or how. So, for example, my romantic relationships ended unexpectedly. Many of my friendships were not strong enough. So even when minor conflicts appeared, the friendship fell apart. Or many of my relationships with people I cared about were circumstantial. So when the circumstances shifted, the friendships, the relationships disintegrated. And then there was a relationship with my family. And to be honest with you, I struggled to feel a real sense of belonging with my family. All I could see at the time was that I was different from the rest of my family, and that this difference added unnecessary drama and pain in my life. When I learned to become aware of how I wanted to be in my relationships and why that was important to me, that's when I started to see that for any relationship to succeed, the relationship with myself, with my life, a romantic relationship with another person, a personal or professional relationship, there needs to be open, sincere, authentic, and compassionate communication. And I can say that writing this new list about how I wanted to be in my relationships was instrumental in realizing how I needed to take responsibility for how I was communicating. And this list also helped me see that I needed to learn, develop, and refine new communication tools, skills, capacities, and intentions. You could say that this list is an ongoing dynamic process for me. Yes, I am still editing this list. And I give this list a special attention, time, and space at the beginning of a new year. As I said at the beginning of the year, billions of people are engaged in this energy of newness. Each new year gives us the opportunity to learn, to develop or refine new communication tools, new communication skills and capacities, new communication intentions. And when you start doing this work, you'll see, like with me, there's not one relationship I have in my life in which I'm not asking myself how I want to contribute to what I want to experience with my communication. So, as you start this new year, if you're ready to join in the global energy of newness and take advantage of this energetic momentum, take the time and space to set true intentions about what you want to experience in the relationships in your life. And then see what kind of communication tools, skills, capacities, and intentions need your learning, your cultivation, or your refinement. And for that, I want to give you some useful tools. And yes, it does include writing a list. First, I want to direct you to podcast 24, where I share a process for you to understand what kind of partner, offspring, friend, sibling, boss, coworker, or neighbor you want to be. Then you can listen to podcast 25, where I teach you how to commit to learning to communicate in alignment with what you want in your relationships. I will add the links for these two podcasts in the show notes. Thirdly, once you know what you'd like in your relationships and you understand what you need to learn, it's important to remember that the path of transformation is gradual. It's not something you do once and that's it. If you play a musical instrument, if you play a sport, if you practice yoga or meditation, you know you need ongoing practice. And that within this practice, there are seasons and cycles. Sometimes you'll need to dive in and immerse yourself in learning a new communication skill, while other times you'll need reminders of what you've learned before. So I want to give you some options for you to consider for sustainable transformation. If all you need is a reminder, then you can either sign up for my newsletter. I send it every Wednesday. It's a brief email with transformative communication tools that goes directly into your inbox. Or you can keep listening to this podcast. And if you do, share it with a friend and then talk together about what you're learning from the podcast. That way, you will remind yourself of what you are learning and deepen your transformation. Now, if after writing your list of intentions, you realize that you need to dive in and learn new communication tools, skills, and capacities, then you have 3 options. Number 1, you can join one of my 3-month transformative communication coaching groups that are limited to 8 people. Number 2, you can work with me one-on-one and have one-on-one communication coaching, or you and your partner can work with me and have couple communication coaching where you can get the deep transformations that are needed in your life right now. Or number 3, you can sign up for one of my transformative online communication courses. Just go to languagealchemy.com and you'll find all the information you need there. And if you have any questions, you can send me an email if you're in my mailing list, or you can DM me on Instagram by going to @languagealchemy. Let this be the year you learn what you need to learn to have what you want in your relationships. And my wish for you is that you have nourishing and fulfilling relationships in the new year because you learn to communicate with openness, sincerity, authenticity, and compassion. Thank you so much for listening. Until next week, and as we say in Argentina, ciao ciao. Original music by Gary LaPoe. You can find all links in the show notes at languagealchemy.com.